Awesome. A pleasure to welcome to the podcast Jackson Runkle, aka Runkle Runk. Welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for reaching out and thank you for making this happen. I know we had to reschedule a couple times, but here we are to talk about lacrosse goalie. And I'd love to hear the story of the first time that you jumped into goal. You remember that?
Yes, sir. It's actually, I remember this very clearly. Um, we were throwing around on the blacktop because the day that we were playing, we were kind of just on the blacktop because the field was being used. And at the time, I was scheduled to be a D midi, but coach, my middle school coach at the time, kind of brought us all in a huddle and was like, "We need a third goalie," because I guess the norm for him was three to a roster, and for some reason, no one wanted to play. So he was like, "Anybody here play goalie in other sports? How about soccer? Anyone here's a soccer goalie?" And I was like, "I played soccer goalie," so I raised my hand, having no idea what I was getting put into, and he was like, "You're a goalie now." So then I kind of went home and I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, Dad, Coach O'Neill, who's my coach, he was like, 'You're playing goalie now.'" And he was kind of bummed for some reason because he didn't know a lot about lacrosse. Neither did I.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, I wanted to see you run around." But I kind of just went to bed having no idea what was going to happen. And then next day, I went to practice. They gave me a Warrior Nemesis Pro and a really old Eclipse 1, and they kind of
Yeah.
just threw me a net, and I kind of just learned from there.
I love it. I love it. Now, would you say it was sort of love at first save, or was it kind of challenging for you at first in terms of the goalie position?
So it definitely started with some frustration for sure.
Yeah.
I'm definitely what you would call a perfectionist in the sense that like I'm the guy who thinks you can save everything.
Hmm.
So when I was getting like beamed top shelf, I was kind of like, dang. And my passes weren't very good either. So it like started with frustration. But once I started to pick it up, I just fell in love with it. Like I love this sport, and you can ask anybody. Like I'm carrying my sticks like through the halls at school. I'm playing wall ball at lunch. Like I'm like addicted to it now, but it wasn't always that way.
Yeah, that's cool. That's how I was as well when I first started playing lacrosse, as I really got addicted to it, just like you. And I was in college, and so I would carry my stick around and play wall ball in between the study sessions. And I mean, that's really how you improve. It's how you get better. So that's cool that you're in that
Yes,
state.
sir.
I wanted to talk about, you mentioned sort of being that, perfectionist.
Yeah.
And how do you balance that mentally with this position of lacrosse goalie when it's very difficult uh, to be a perfection, or very difficult to have perfection?
Yes, sir. So Matt DeLuca, I believe, covered this on your podcast somewhat recently, and he was like, "You can't, you can't be 100%. It's just not." And I am a big believer in that. Like being 100%, like thinking you can do that and like holding that as your standard is just not healthy. Like my standard is 100%, but like because it's 100%, when I let in like one, two, three goals a game, I'll come to the sideline of my dad and I'll be super upset. And he'll be like, "Dude, you just had an insane game. Why are you upset?" And I'm like, "Because I got scored on."
Right.
And he's like, "But buddy, it's going to happen." So I think kind of a way to kind of balance that is just to have not necessarily lower your expectations, but just making more realistic ones and not having the mindset of I'm going to save literally every shot, because if you hold that standard to yourself and beat yourself up afterwards, you're just not going to enjoy it. And I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. Like I'll beat myself up after games and it'll hinder my enjoyment for hours, sometimes even days. So just setting those more realistic expectations, I feel like, is crucial.
Um, yeah, let's continue to talk about that because I remember that exact session that you're talking about with Matt DeLuca, and he was saying that he was guilty of that as well. Like when he goes out, he thinks that he can save 100% of the shots. And but the key then is knowing that you're not, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
knowing that like when I do give up those goals, I'm not going to be like so hard on myself. Because if I go into the game with this mindset of I am going to save 100% of the shots, I think you're actually going to save more of the shots than if you don't have that mindset. So this tricky balance, right? And
Yes,
that's
sir.
interesting what you said about sometimes you'd get down on yourself about you'd have a great game, but because you have that perfectionist sort of mentality, you're not feeling good after the game. And I bet you had
Yes,
some
sir.
specific games where that happened.
I can actually think of one very recently where I was at U.S. Club Nationals in Orlando, Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and we played in the semifinal game against a team called Brady's Bunch. And I saved 4 out of 5, but that fifth one just so happened to be the one that would win them the game. And it was a step down from, I'd say, around 11 yards away, off stick low. And I was kind of out of position a little bit, but
Yeah.
like after the game, I made 4 amazing stops, but I was so obsessed with that one
Right.
because, especially because I played second half, letting in that last goal, you feel like you lost the game.
Right.
And that kind of just like really hurt, you know? And
Yeah.
like, I've always been pretty bad at like obsessing over things because like I've always had like some OCD type tendencies,
Mm.
which is kind of a weakness that I still work to overcome
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just like letting things go and just moving on.
Yeah. How do you recommend that other goalies listening to this let it go and move on? Because it can be so challenging, right? Like after that game, that club game, all you're thinking about is that one you should have saved.
Yes, sir. I am going to be completely honest. I still struggle.
Yeah.
I still like tonight. I actually have 2 play league games that I'm playing in tonight.
Hmm.
And I know that if I let in goals, I feel like I should have saved. It's going to be hard for me to let that go. But I feel like there's not necessarily a golden nugget that's going to help you automatically. I feel like it's just something you're going to have to work on and just like look at the positives. Think like try not to rationalize it too much. Like don't get all up in your head about it because that only kind of makes it worse. Just take the positives from what happened, take something you learned from it, and just don't think about it anymore. I'd say is my biggest thing because when you think about things that happen too much, you're going to lose enjoyment of the game. And about a year ago, I kind of went through a dark passage where I kind of just would only think about shots I let in and I wouldn't think about the amazing saves I would make. And it kind of just like hindered my enjoyment a little bit, which is never healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, if you're only focused on like the mistakes that we make, then mentally it's going to be really challenging for you as a goalie. Um, or even as an athlete, right? But how did you then? I mean, it sounds like you're still working through it, but you said you went through a dark place where you were only focused on maybe those mistakes. Are you now like after a game? Is it all right? Like let me kind of appreciate some of the great saves I made, some of the great plays I made. Is that kind of the mindset, or is there something else?
Yes, sir. It's definitely improved a great deal since then. Um, Obviously, it's not perfect. I do still sometimes get mad after games, but that's because I hold myself to a high standard, and to an extent, I feel like that definitely makes me better than I would have been
Hmm.
because I'm passionate about the game.
Yeah.
But it's important to draw that line between passion and just constantly beating yourself up. So I feel like now a bigger strategy I have is just to recognize that like while I am the last line of defense, like I'm not the only player on the field and
Yeah.
that like I can do my part, but outside of that, you just have to control the controllables. I know somebody came here recently and talked about that, but just to control what you can control and leave the rest to everything else.
Yeah. Now, do you tend to get like upset in games during the games, like when you gave up the goal, or is it more one of these things where it's when you're reflecting on your performance after the game?
Sometimes it can definitely happen in games, and I can
Mm.
give you a really clear example. because last year my team, Orange High School, faced a top 10 team in the state called Holly Springs,
Mm-hmm.
and I got kind of lit up that game.
Mm-hmm.
9 straight, basically.
Ooh, yeah,
It was rough. I'm not gonna lie, and
sure.
I was kind of what my high school coach would call getting into a red light. Like my brain, I could feel my brain like just going crazy, and I
Right.
could feel the emotions rising, um, which definitely is gonna happen. But I tried to control it the best I could. And for me, most of the sadness comes after the game. Once I reflect, I feel like when you're in
Yeah.
the game, it's important to not allow that to happen, because when you start like getting emotional like that in the game, like you've already lost. When you
Yeah.
allow yourself to shut down like that, you can't do that.
Yeah, 100% agree. That was going to be a point I made is that in game, like you shouldn't really be analyzing how you're playing
Yes, sir. And I
because
try to.
yeah, as soon as you do, like you get in your own head, right, and start thinking about even if you're playing great. I mean, it goes both ways, but especially if you're playing bad, it's just all about getting that next one and staying present, and that's going to help you not go through those huge slides.
Yeah, yes, sir.
So
And I think I've gotten much better at not thinking in game,
yeah,
because now, like, as simple as this sounds, like the only thing I'm focused on is the ball.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
I'm not really diving in my head if my eyes are so focused on what's in front of me, and that kind of helps me stay in the present moment.
Yeah. And then do you have like some sort of reset routine that you go through when you do give up a goal? Anything like that?
I just kind of just think to myself like it was a good shot, it was on crease, etc. I did what I did. Time to look ahead. Like
Boom.
if
Yeah.
I, you cannot, like I said earlier, you cannot just sit back and think about what just happened, because then it's going to happen again and again and again.
Yeah. Love it. So you join the club, you're the third string, or one of three goalies on the team, I should say. How'd you then go about learning how to make saves? How did you learn how to be a goalie?
So um my middle school coach was actually a goalie coach at Elon. I believe he coached club at Elon University.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of taught me like the ins and outs. He kind of taught the 45-degree step, which I later kind of adapted out of. And he taught me just the basics of just movements and position work and all that. And I also had another goalie coach named Ethan who kind of really pushed me. And that kind of beginner coaching combined with just my overall passion for the game, because the other two goalies that were on the team, like they were great, but they definitely did not match the passion I had.
Mm.
And I feel like that passion and love for the game that I had really carried me a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. I coach goalies via Zoom, in these classes, and when we talk about the mental game, like the first step of the mental game is like love of the game, is that passion, right? And
Yes, sir.
if you don't have that, then your mental game's going to be like really shot. But if you do have that love of the game and that passion, that's kind of the base of being an elite goalie, especially when it comes to that mental game. So
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
what do you love about lacrosse so much, about this position so much?
It's just I see the game of goalie as just an art. Like the way you can like pick your style and go with it, and just the way that like you feel so important all the time. It's just like it's the best, man. Like I love it so much. And I'll admit, when it comes to style and art, I kind of like exploit that a little bit to where like I'm I'm what's called a tweaker. I like to tweak details about my style of play, like
Mm,
stance specific. I experiment with stance kind of a little too much, but I very much enjoy just the art of being a goalie and just customizing the way you play to see what works for you. I think finding that style is really, really important.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree. What are some examples of things that you tweaked that you really liked?
So one of the tweaks was actually um my stance. I would look back at my stance, and I am not a tall guy at all. I am 5'6" and am expected to grow another 3 inches. So I have accepted I will never be a tall guy. And my stance kind of, Jack Frassion, you know how he gets like really, really low?
I do, yeah.
That used to be me. Like my
Oh
head
wow.
would go below halfway of the net,
Wow.
and I just got smoked high. So kind of something I changed was just having a slight knee bend rather than that, like knees almost touching the ground, like super low stance.
Yeah, yeah, that deep knee bend.
Yes, sir. I just had
Interesting.
to.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of goalies in that deep squat, and I was not like I'm 5'8", so I'm not that tall at all, and I could not do that deep squat. So I was you got to have that athletic knee bend, but definitely was not like Jack Frasian, um, who we just recorded a podcast with. It'll probably be coming out right before
Yes,
this
sir.
one. So there you
He's
go.
incredible.
Yeah,
He's
he's a
incredible.
good guy. Good guy.
Yes, sir.
Um, okay, so the knee bend. What else? Anything else? So curious.
I kind of used to. Here, I actually have a stick right here. I can kind of show
Yeah,
you.
grab it.
I used to really hold my stick like straight up and down,
Oh yeah.
and I would find myself getting handcuffed. The stick would get caught on my knee. Just this style didn't work for me. So
Yeah.
now I kind of like to angle my stick a little more.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that more free to move personally. And I like that a lot better.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with you on that one. I mean, I never like try and change goalies games, but I certainly like would preach that you have a little bit of angle in your
Yes, sir.
stick. And there used to be like a lot of goalies who would set up with like sort of this locked out like bottom hand and have it like way
Yeah.
over here to the right. And you can
Yeah.
even see like my logo. I sent a picture of the designer of a goalie like that to the designer, and that's how he made my logo. And then like my original logo, it's like the bottom hand's locked out. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not, you can't do that. So I had him change it.
Yeah.
It's now
Yeah.
more relaxed. Right in front of your belly button is the bottom hand, and then top hand right about your chin,
Yeah.
I say.
Yeah.
Works
If your
well.
bottom hand is like straight, off stick
Yeah.
is going to be a problem.
I think a lot of things are going to be a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Anything else, or is that pretty much the main things?
Um, for like stance in
Or just
particular,
things you've tweaked? Yeah.
I used to like mentally something I've kind of changed up is I used to have mental cues, and mental cues are great. Like if you use mental cues, like kudos to you, but like I found mental cues to be a little distracting. So now I'm like purely focused on really like visualizing and actually seeing the ball rather than like telling myself to see the ball, if that makes any sense.
What would you mean? What do you mean as like a mental cue? Like saying something to yourself that would help you focus?
Yes, sir. Like
Okay.
like telling yourself like see the ball, explode to the ball.
Hmm.
Like I have kind of a brain that is somewhat difficult to shut off. So I used to have those mental cues to like kind of take care of it,
Hmm.
but it actually we talk about the flow state all the time of just not thinking and to just like play your game and let your body take over. But I felt with those mental cues, my brain really wasn't doing that and it wasn't
Mm.
shutting off like it should.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of altered that and kind of scrapped that out a part of my mental game.
Yeah. And so what do you do now? Now it's just you don't necessarily say it to yourself. You just
Yes, sir.
focus on the
Yes,
ball.
sir. Now it's just go time. Just see the ball and just let my body take over. And that's a big part of just like trusting your training, trusting that your body's going to do what it's supposed to do if you just focus.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that because I think that's a huge part of strong mental game is trusting that training, right?
Yes, sir.
You've put in so much work, and when you get into these big games or big tryouts, it's very easy to be really nervous and kind of forget about all that work that you did. Well, trust that training and then just go out there and have fun. And it's now time It's now we used to call game days paydays, right? Because when you work for 2 weeks, and then you get paid, right? And that's the fun part. Well, games are a payday because I've put in all this work, and now it's time to go get paid. It's time to have fun.
Yes, sir. Because I'm definitely someone who needs to trust his training because I have done a lot of training.
Yeah,
So
I like it.
kind of like I have a funny story actually.
Let's hear it.
I get shots in my front yard with a lacrosse goal that we have. We have a crank shooter, and multiple times I've left that lacrosse goal out in the yard, and the HOA has not been pleased with that.
Well, they don't like lacrosse goals in the front yard.
No, sir. We've
Oh
gotten
man.
like 3 complaints from the
Oh
HOA.
man.
So
HOAs. What about your backyard? I got mine in my backyard. No complaints.
my backyard's a little crammed. It's got a play
Okay.
set back there, and
Okay.
it's not a ton of room back there.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. What does you said you put in a lot of work. Like what does a typical week of training look like for you?
Training, I'd say, consists of mostly just constant repetition, meaning shots from my friends, shots from even my dad will go outside sometimes until he's like, all right, bud, my shoulder's done, you know?
Yeah.
And, and I also spend a lot of time outside on the rebounder, and
Nice.
my rebounder can angle forward and back. So, like, I have my rebounder angled forward right now. So I was practicing low shots
Yeah.
because whenever the ball would bounce back, it would go at my feet. So
Yep.
I was able to like practice those low stuff.
Cool. Is there a specific element of your goalie game that you're like focused on right now, improving?
Right now, I'd say just massive steps and to just like explosive movement. I think that as a small guy, which is a gift and a curse, I need to just focus on like very explosive movements because
Hmm.
being small is not a weakness at all. But you have
No.
to recognize that when you're smaller, you have to have kind of those explosive movements.
Right.
While the bigger guys can like have a little bit smaller steps to the ball, us smaller guys kind of have to dominate movement. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now is just dominating movement.
Love it. Love it.
Yes,
What
sir.
when you watch like college or pro goalies, who are the guys that you like to watch and learn from?
My favorite guys to watch right now are actually I watch a lot of college and PLL. I also watch a lot of high school guys as well.
Yeah, cool.
And kind of my favorite goalies to watch right now is I'd say Max Becker is one of them because he's 5'5", so he's kind of the staple. When I look at him, I like can learn a lot from him because of his build. And another goalie I like a lot, and then I'll move on to college, is Preston Hawkins, just because of how explosive he is. He's texted me a few times, just giving me some tips, some mental tips. So pretty cool guy and just very explosive all around.
Yeah, and where do you go to these guys' games or like how do you watch them?
So I honestly just um I have not gotten the luxury to watch them in person, but they do
Okay,
have their like highlights posted on YouTube and
got it, got
stuff.
it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, let's hear college.
College, um, this is actually one that I've trained with and who's been at your summit for some time. Michael Gianfrancaro
Oh yeah,
is one of the big college guys, as well as Logan McNaney has become a big one just
yeah,
because, again, smaller guy, a lot to
right,
learn from there.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah.
I've trained
Great,
a lot with.
great picks. And Mike G's not. He's probably like 5'10", so he's not 5'9". He's not super tall, but yeah, those are good. Those are really good picks because especially Logan. That like to me when younger, smaller goalies want to watch a goalie who's like short and quick, that's the one I always point to. And his clearing game is like one of the best I've ever seen. It's really he does a
Yes,
really good
sir.
job in the clearing game.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
cool.
I've also been I've been trying to do a lot better job at like researching guys that are similar to me
Yeah.
and not watching like such a good goalie, but Liam Entenmann is a big example. I used to watch him and I would try to make my game like mirroring his.
Yeah.
like I tried to adopt the super wide stance, the kind of just I tried to adopt the stick placement, the wide stance,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't, and it just didn't work for me. And I was
Right.
like, why isn't this working? And he's 6'3", I'm 5'6". I will never crack the 6 foot mark. So I just need to kind of just mimic the play style of, or not necessarily mimic others, but just learn from guys who are a little more similar to me.
Yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense because, like you said at the beginning, I mean, you can be successful in all body types, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be very hard if you try and emulate that wide base that Liam does because he does a lot of things using his height and that we can't do. So that's cool. Um, all right, that's what I like to hear. So then, what? You're a sophomore in high school now, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and are you? How do you like? Are you playing club? Are you like the starter on the high school team, or like talk to me about that? What do you got going on there?
Yes, sir. So this year, I actually have been the confirmed starter for my high school team
Nice,
after um, the goalie who just left, phenomenal, is a women's lacrosse player who's playing D1 at Elon University.
nice,
So she was kind of the starter last year, and now the starter this year. And I played club for the Carolina Hilltoppers, and I played for a national team called the Southern Lacrosse Alliance. So I'm kind of busy.
all right, man. A lot of games, a lot of
Yes,
games.
sir.
Now we're recording this in January, mid January. Are you like when does it get going? Like February, March?
I'd say we really hit the ground running like that February, March range
Yeah,
because just that's when we get to, 5, 6 practices a week plus the
mm,
occasional club practice.
yeah,
So that's when like, especially I'd say March is like the prime of like
right,
hitting the ground running.
right. With all that lacrosse, do you ever feel like you get burned out personally?
I cannot sit here and lie to you that I don't because absolutely. And sometimes like I never get burnt out from playing it, but sometimes when I'm doing all this lacrosse, sometimes I don't want to like watch it quite as much, if that makes sense.
Like
Like,
you don't want to watch college or pro?
yeah, I don't
Huh.
want to watch film when I get burnt out, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna it takes a lot for me to get burnt out from playing because that doesn't
Mhm.
happen very often.
Yeah, well, I think that can be tied back to that passion of the game because when that's really, really strong, like I mean, you always want to play, right? But
Yes, sir.
you got to be careful with that because if you're burning the candle at both ends and just constantly playing and never taking breaks, sometimes even though goalie's the thing I love to do the best, you can feel like a little bit burnt out. We're like, oh, I don't really want to play today. And so just be careful with that. But know yourself, right? Because
Yes, sir.
some people ask me like, well, how many practices is too many, or how much should I play club and high school? And it's just like I can't answer that for you, right? I can't answer that for you. It's like it's all about you and knowing yourself. And some goalies like you can push it hard and practice every day, and they still love it, right? Day
Yes,
number
sir.
7, and they maybe take a day off and like, man, I wish I could go take shots. And other goalies just practice a couple times a week, and that's a little bit too much. So,
Yes, sir.
no,
So
that's
next
awesome.
week is gonna be rough for me because we have an estimated 9 inches of snow. So
Oh wow.
that's gonna be like a few days where I can't get shot. So that might drive me a little crazy.
All right. I don't know if I ever played in a snow game. I grew up in California and played in California. I think we played in one snow game when we visited Utah. But it sounds like you do play in snow games. What are some tips for those snow games for the goalies?
I mentioned the snow. This is the first snow wave
Okay.
we've really gotten in like 3 to 4 years. So never actually gotten the luxury to play in snow, but um,
All right.
I
Well,
might try.
you'll learn some new tips and you'll share them with us in the future.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But what do you do? What are you going to do when it's snowing outside? Like, what are some indoor things or training that you like to do?
Um, Inside, it's actually a great question because to be honest with you, I don't think the snow's gonna stop me from going outside. I'll probably still do my usual wall ball routine outside,
There you go.
and might even do like some hand eye. I occasionally do some ball drops with my brother,
Yeah.
and just it's constant. Like we'll go on family walks. I'll have him throw a tennis ball at me. Like it is constant.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to recommend. So if you got like a garage, obviously you can juggle and do a lot of hand-eye stuff. Jump rope is always good. Um, there's like Colin Kirst did this awesome session at one of the lacrosse goalie summits called Basement Goalie Drills, and he was just down in his basement and he just demoed like all of these drills that you can just do in your basement, and like the list goes on and on. He set up like a little like goal with tape, like a 6x6, and then had like numbers, and his brother would call out numbers, and he would just kind of make air saves, practicing his movement. So much stuff. So a lot of plyometrics, like jumping over the jumping, like
Oh yeah,
set up your stick and jump over that left and right, front and back, 1 foot, side to side. So much stuff you can do. Just get creative
yeah,
with it.
yes sir. I might
Yeah.
actually take that into account, and I might find a 6x6 wall.
Yeah, I'll
And
send you that session. I'll send you that goalie session, and you can check it out. It's a
yes
really
sir.
good one. Really good one. Okay. How about a slump? You ever been through a slump, and how did you go about getting out of that?
A slump. I'd say fall of 2023 was my considered slump because I do this because while I wasn't necessarily making the most saves,
Mm-hmm.
every single one of my shots came from within 5 yards. So it would always feel like and not making that as an excuse at all.
Right.
But matter of fact, I did the opposite because those shots were coming in from 5 yards, but I was still like, why am I not saving every single shot? I've kind of always been like that. So, and then because I would get in my head about those close shots, when they did eventually back up to about 10 yards, they would still go in because I was still thinking like I was still annoyed about them shooting so close. So that kind of mental cycle that my dad talks to me about a lot, that mental cycle of getting scored on, then getting mad you got scored on, then getting mad because you got mad. It's just like a constant cycle that if you don't break is going to not only hinder performance, but it's going to hinder your love for the game, which honestly for me is almost worse than breaking performance is impacting my love for the game. So kind of the way I kind of got out of that slump, which kind of wouldn't have been till like 2 to 3 months later, is just working on really breaking that cycle and just kind of getting out of your head because your head is your greatest enemy at the end of the day. If you can beat whatever obstacles your mind is throwing at you, you can beat anything.
Yeah. How'd you get out of it? That cycle.
I feel like for the longest time to not think about something, I would tell myself to not think about something, which would never work. Because if I tell you right now, don't think of a purple elephant,
Right.
I know a purple elephant just popped in your head.
Right.
So the biggest method for me to not think about something is to let go of it in general and just to stop focusing mental energy on it. Think about something else. Focus on the positive. Focus on just what's in front of you. And if you dive in your head and give it too much energy and keep telling yourself, don't think about that, you're going to think about it regardless. So
Right.
just if you let go of what is bothering you completely, that has helped me a lot over the years. Just because honestly, my mental game is like sometimes my biggest weakness. Just my
Yeah.
mind. I feel like there's not much mechanically in terms of skill. I feel like I have a lot of things down.
Yeah.
But when I dive in my head, that's kind of where the problems start.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of this coaching session that I watched where someone asked him like he was talking about like meditating, right? That was the whole session. It was on
Mm,
meditating. And someone asked him like, "Well, how do I get started with meditating?" And he said, you're probably already doing it because
yeah.
everyone's got like a stressful maybe like a stressful game or like a stressful job or like a stressful situation and you're worrying about that. And that is meditating because you're putting all your focus, all your energy, all your thoughts on that one thing.
Yes,
And he
sir.
said, all right, now let's switch it, right? And let's not put our thoughts and our focus and our energy on that one thing. Let's put it, on our breath, on our breathing, on our positive thoughts. And to me, that sounds like exactly kind of what you went through.
Yes, sir. People, when they think of meditating, they think of sitting in this goofy position and
Right,
like
right.
doing all sorts of just goofy things. But what meditating actually is just focusing on what you said, your breath, your thoughts. If I sat here and I'm closing my eyes and I'm just thinking about something, like that's meditating.
It
And that's what
is.
a lot of people don't understand. And I feel like that, like those like meditation practices actually help me a lot just because, like, obviously, I already said just sitting in your mind and rationalizing things isn't always healthy. But when I'm just like in my room by myself and I can just like get a moment to just sit here and just think over
Hmm.
things, I
Hmm.
feel like that can definitely help me a lot.
I think it would help you a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Um, the other thing that I really liked is like journaling. I don't know if do you do that at
Ooh.
all?
That is one of the things that like every single like person who's ever struggled with like their mental self has
Yeah.
told me to like get a book, write down what's bothering you and
Yeah.
analyze it from there. But I've really never done that. I kind of wish I had done that and I actually have like a journal right here to where I
Yeah.
could do that.
Yeah, it's
But
not too late.
yeah, sometimes
The other the other way you can use it is if you have like a really good game, it's just kind of like writing down like everything that sort of happened that day, right? And what happened in that game and what were some of the
yes,
thoughts
sir.
that you were experiencing in that game and some of the feelings that you had in that game and just like, oh man, in the third quarter I made such a sick save and like, everyone was pumped
Yes,
up and
sir.
writing all that stuff. And then like when you go back and like maybe you're not having a good day or like maybe you're feeling a little bit nervous and now I read that journal entry right from that day that I was so pumped up and it's like wow, like I could recapture that. It's called like a confidence reservoir and like I can like I'm building the confidence the reservoir as I write the journal entries and then when I need it I can dip into that reservoir and give myself a little juice, right?
Yes, sir.
That works tremendously well from the goalies that I've talked to. And then you can also, do you have like your own highlight reel?
My funny you mentioned my dad is actually he's I used to have this like mini highlight reel, but it was kind of funny because it was all videos of like me when I first started.
Okay.
And over time, as I've like improved, he's been kind of revising that and turning it into like a reel I could show to colleges in the future. And
Nice.
so I kind of do have a little 3.5 minute little video. You can look it up if you'd like.
I will.
Um, and that's kind of what I'm working with right now.
Yeah. Well,
And
that was going
so
to be my other point is that, well, you should, if you can create a new one with your latest saves, that would be really cool. Not just for colleges, definitely for college recruiting as well, but as part of that confidence reservoir, you can
yes, sir.
rewatch that, right? And get back into the mood.
Yes, sir. Because Emmett Carroll actually talked about that recently, how he was kind of in a slump, but his coaching staff showed him this really sick video of all of his awesome saves, and that kind of
Yeah.
brought him out of the slump. So that's definitely
Yep.
whenever I'm feeling bummed, even just like in the middle of the school day, sometimes I'll go to that video and I'll just like watch it and be like, I'm a stud. I'm not
Yeah.
this guy. I'm
Right.
not this guy who's just in a slump all the time. Like, this is me.
Yeah.
So I think that really helps.
I love that. I love that. So do you have a goal to play lacrosse in college?
That is the only thing I want,
Oh,
honestly.
nice, nice.
That's the dream, honestly. That is
Okay.
the dream. Well, ultimate dream is the PLL, but
Yeah.
I understand that the PLL, especially in its current state, it's gonna be a rocky road. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna do what I can, and if things don't work out, then that's okay. Because if I know that I did what I can, then that's okay.
Yeah, love it. What would you say, like, if you had to pick one school that college, if you had that you wanted to play for, your dream school, what would it be?
Dream school is the University of North Carolina.
All right. Right,
And
close to home, huh?
close to home, yes, sir. And
Yeah.
I've also narrowed it down, and I've narrowed it down by division. So like D1, I would love to go to like High Point, UNC, Jacksonville.
Nice.
Jacksonville. I've actually recently visited Jacksonville University, and I think playing for John Galloway would just be an amazing experience.
Wouldn't that be cool? In Florida on the beach?
Oh, that'd be hard to beat.
No,
And
no snow there.
nah, would probably never see snow again if I went
Yeah,
there.
there you go.
And
Well, you got it. You got it, my man. I'm sure
yes, sir. Thank you.
you've got the right attitude and keep working hard and wish you tons of luck and success in that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, awesome. This has been ton of fun. Do you feel like we covered everything, or were there some other stories you wanted to hit on?
Um, I would actually like to ask you a quick question
Go for it.
about like what I can do at this age, because obviously colleges can't contact me now. So at this age, as a sophomore in high school, what should I do for like my college recruiting?
Yeah. So I would make your highlight tape,
Okay.
step one, right? And you got that on YouTube. And then uh so then I would email all of the college coaches that you're interested. You got your list of schools, it sounds like already, right?
Yes, sir.
So I would create like a document that has like your list of schools and then all of the coaches' emails.
Okay. So,
All of them, right? Not just the head coach, because sometimes like an assistant coach handles the recruiting, or they have a goalie coach and he handles the specific. So you never know who's going to do that.
yes, sir.
It's sort of a one-way communication at this point. Like you can shoot them emails and they'll see them. They won't be able to contact you, right?
Not till September 1st. No, sir.
Exactly, not till September 1st of your junior year. So I would do a save video, a highlight video every sort of every season, right? So this would be Jackson Runkle, spring 2025. Hey coach, and then there's some email templates I have on my site that you can use, but essentially you're just letting them know you're interested in your school. Just wanted to send over my spring 2025 highlights. Here's the link to the video. And then if you're going to be at like tournaments, then I would let them know. And especially if you know that they're also going to be at those tournaments, like I would let them know that, let them know where they can see you, right? Because maybe they can then find you. And then, yeah, and then I would do that in the summer, in the winter, and then until, September 1st of your junior year, in which case then they can start sort of contacting you and kind of figure out where you stand.
Yes, sir.
The other
And
thing is, do you, sorry to interrupt you there. Do you know if North Carolina has like a prospect camp or like, like a clinic?
actually, me and my dad have been kind of looking into those prospect days, and I have been to one on a school that I forgot to mention actually, which is definitely my top five to play at. Is actually Lenore Ryan.
Lenore
I
Rhyme. Yeah, yeah.
I
I
went
heard
to
D2 or D3?
D2, yes sir,
D2, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and I actually went to their prospect day and somewhat killed it. I played pretty good
My
in
man,
that
way to
prospect
go.
day. Yes sir, thank you.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been looking at those. My family, especially my mom, wants to like find those prospect days that are somewhat close to home. So I might go to the UNC one, might go
Well,
to like the
yeah, I
one.
mean, if that's the school you want to go to, I mean, that's an easy way to get on their radar is hit up, one of those days. So anyway, that's my answer to that one.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jackson Runkle, thank you, my man. If you want to if you had to leave the goalies out there, final piece of advice, what would that be?
Final piece of advice: do not focus on your mistakes, please. It is going to ruin your enjoyment, and you have to just focus on the positives. Focus on just the 6 saves you make and think about that. Never give a second thought about your mistakes, because that's what's going to help you go far.
Jackson, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.